Hey everybody, we're going to now do a quick example for the homework you guys have for Excel Chapter 2. Some folks are having some trouble with it, so I thought I would put in this little example. I've kind of just built a little example here that is very close to what you guys will be doing, but uses different variables here. Here, instead of the class ring, we've got, we're adopting some animals here. We've got Spot, Tiger, Fluffy, etc. And then we also have, we have the fees here. We have, instead of the personalization, we have a vaccine. And then we have monthly payments, which you wouldn't normally do in an animal shelter. But hey, just an example. What am I going to do? Okay, we're going to look at there's other things to do in the problem. We're going to look at the three main ones, our C, E, and G columns. In this column, for column C, we're going to be doing a VLOOKUP. And let's talk about a VLOOKUP, how you do one properly, and how you do one properly for this problem. So here I have VLOOKUP in my function window. If you didn't see it, you can search from the functions, or if you know what you're doing, if you know the name of what you're doing, I should say, you can just VLOOKUP, and there it is. Okay, so we have 4 factors to a VLOOKUP, and let's go over each one. The first one is the lookup value. This is just what are we trying to match, because a VLOOKUP is a matching kind of function. So what are we matching? We are looking for whatever is in B2. In this case, it's the animal type, and here we know we're matching it to the animal type down here. So whatever we're looking for, this is what we're looking for the match for. Next, we have the table array, and the table array is just a data set where we're going to find that match. And here, pretty plain to see, it's right here, because we want the amount, and we want to match it to cat. We want to match it to whatever animal type it is. In the real world, we have 6 or 7 animals, and we would just eyeball it. But here, just imagine a huge data set where this would be required. So we've chosen our table array or our data set. Here, the book talks about absolute, mixed, and relative cell references, and we want to make this absolute. And essentially what we're doing here is we're going to be dragging our formula down. Relative references, as you drag, to go from cat to dog to rabbit. That's relative. As you move down one, it moves down one. Here, we want this to stay absolute because we don't want these numbers to move down as we move down. We want that to stay in place. And what those dollar signs here, when putting it in absolute, is it locks that data into place in the spreadsheet. Column index number, this one's pretty simple. Our data set right here, has 2 columns. Where are the numbers? What do we want to match? We want to match the number. It's in column 2. It's really as simple as that. If we had 3 columns and the numbers were in the 3rd column, it would be column index 3. 4 columns, it would be 4, etc. It's really just where we're looking for the match. And then finally, range lookup. This one, if you leave this out, or if you put the word true, it kind of explains it right here. It will just take, it's looking for a number, it's looking for a match. It'll take the first thing it matches. And for cat, that would be fine because it goes alphabetically. But when it went to dog, you would get the same number for cat because it's just looking for any match in this data set. When we put false in, we're saying we want an exact match. We want cat to match to cat. We want dog to match to dog. We want fish to match with fish, right? We don't want just the first match you come across, in which case you might have hundreds all the way down, right? So we put false because we want this to match exactly. Click OK, and then I'm going to pull this down. Let's see here. Looks like everybody is correct. So we've done it correctly. I'm not going to worry about the totals. So now we do the vaccines. Hey, if this animal, if we adopt them and we have the shelter, give them their vaccines, it's going to be 10% more, right? And so what we do here is we do an if function. If. Click OK. And if is a really simple function because Excel, it's a really powerful tool, but it can only do what we tell it to do. It's kind of dumb on its own. And so what we're saying is here, Excel, hey, we're looking for something. And what we're looking for is, are they getting vaccines? So what we do is we put a cell reference. So hey, here in D2, what's there? And what we're going to say is, does this equal the word yes? Because we can't, for a basic if function, Excel can't even really do between yes or no. It's just, is yes there or is yes not there? So we're going to say, hey, we're looking for the word yes in D2. And then we're going to say, if the word yes is there, if, we're going to do something. And if it's not, we're going to do something else. That's how the functions work. And so if it's true, what are we going to do? We're going to add 10%. So we're going to take that fee, and we're going to multiply by, and this will factor into your homework too, we want to multiply it by 110%, because we just multiply by 10%, then we would only get the vaccine charge. So we want to have 1 plus that percentage in order to get the correct number. So here we're going to do 1 plus, and here, this is one thing you really have to, for Pearson, because it's graded by the Pearson grader, you really always want to use cell references. So we're going to do B17, and here again, we're going to make this absolute because we don't want this moving down as we move down up here. If you had put in 1 plus 0.1 or 1 plus 10%, you would get the correct answer numerically, but the Pearson program wants you to use those cell references, and so they would count it off. Okay, so we're going to close that. And if they don't get the vaccines, it's just going to be the regular old fee. So if it's false, it's just that. And so we'll click OK. And then we'll drag it down to see how we're doing. And if we see the ones that say no, it's just going to be the same. The ones that say yes, we're going to have a little bit more. It's 10% more. And then we're going to set up the monthly payment. Let me pause that a second while I set that up. Okay, so now we have the monthly payment. The function we're going to use here is the PMT function. The book talks about it, but I'm going to go in a little with an example here. So we're going to insert the function. It's not in my little list here, but I know we need to use PMT. And go there. There it is. It's how we, it's a payment calculator. So the thing we have to factor in here, we have our rate. In per is number of periods. Present value is how much the loan is worth now. And these other ones we won't be using. You use them in different functions, and we may use them in other homeworks, but right now we're not going to worry about it. So our rate, and the thing we have to worry about here is we have a yearly interest rate, but we're talking about monthly payments. And so we have to make sure that we're in both and in years and our periods, we're going to have to make sure that we're making these monthly, even though they're based on yearly rates and years of payments. And we do that for our rate by, here's our rate, and again, we want to make this absolute. And we're going to divide this rate by 12. Because, it's 3% for a year, but we don't want to calculate 3% for every monthly payment, because then you'd have 3%, you'd 3 times, you'd have 36%, right? So here we want to have just a 12th of it because we're doing it month to month. And so in the end, it adds up to 3%. And the same thing for the number of periods here. We're going to do this cell reference here, and it's 1 year. We're going to multiply that, whatever's in there, by 12, because it's the number of periods. The number of payments. The present value is going to be how much we owe now, and then right now it's going to be the total. This is the fee. Now the key here is I'm going to go ahead and just click OK, and we would get a negative payment. But as people who get a bill or think about how we're paying down a loan, we don't think about it as that we're making our loan, in this case $9.32 less, we're thinking of the money that's coming out of our pocket, so it's a positive number. So in order to make this a little bit more readable, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our function here and make that negative, because making this number negative, it'll spit out a positive result. That's the reason we do this. Functionally, it's not Doesn't really change anything. If you think about it, we have $110, and the reason it shows negative is because every month you're taking away $9.32 from this total. But again, as consumers, we don't really think about it that way. So if we want to make a chart for consumers, we're going to make it a positive number. So now we'll click down here. Oops. 125. And so here are our numbers, and these would be, these are not high amounts, and so we've got pretty low payments. And that's how you do it. That's the three main functions that we'll be doing for homework in Excel Chapter 2. Thanks a lot.